The lock on that door wasn't broken. It had been installed. That's the detail that wouldn't leave me alone as I stood in my niece's bedroom doorway, staring at a hasp and padlock screwed into the frame from the outside. Someone had measured, drilled, and mounted hardware meant to keep a 7-year-old in, not out. In. I'm Rachel Doyle. I run a small bakery 2 towns over from where my brother Dan and his wife Kayla live, with their daughter Mia. That Thursday started ordinary. A delivery run, a quiet drive, a favor for family. It ended with me kneeling on a stained carpet, listening to a child breathe. I should back up. I'd always been the aunt who showed up. Birthdays, school plays, the Sunday dinners Kayla stopped hosting once things between her and Dan got rocky. When Dan called that morning asking if I could check on Mia, Kayla took her to her mom's for a few days, just make sure the mail's not piling up. I didn't think twice. That's what family does. No questions, no hesitation. Mia was my whole reason for driving 40 minutes on my one day off. She used to run to the mailbox with me when she was little, always asking if I'd brought sprinkle cookies. Somewhere in the last year, the visits had gotten shorter. Kayla always had a reason. Mia was napping. Mia had a headache. Mia wasn't feeling social. I'd noticed. I hadn't pushed. That's the part I still can't forgive myself for. The house looked fine from the driveway. Curtains drawn, lawn cut, nothing screaming wrong. It was the smell that hit first. Stale, sour, wrong in a way that didn't belong in a home with a child in it. Then I heard it. A small, cracked voice through a door at the end of the hall. Is someone there? I tried the handle. It didn't turn. That's when I saw the padlock, shiny and new against the old white paint, completely out of place with the rest of the house. Mia, sweetheart, it's Aunt Rachel. Silence. Then a sound that still wakes me up some nights. Relief. Disbelieving. Fragile. Aunt Rachel? You came back? Came back. Not you're here. Came back. Like this had happened before. Like someone had promised to return and hadn't. I found a screwdriver in the garage and had that lock off in 4 minutes flat, hands shaking so badly I dropped it twice. When the door finally swung open, what I saw inside that room told me this wasn't about a mail pickup or a few days at Grandma's. It told me Kayla hadn't taken Mia anywhere at all. And on the small desk by the window, propped against a stack of untouched school worksheets, sat Mia's tablet, screen cracked, battery nearly dead, one video app still open from whatever she'd last been recording. I didn't know it yet, but that video was about to become the only thing standing between my niece and a story her mother had already decided to tell everyone. The paramedics arrived 12 minutes after my call. Mia was dehydrated, 20 pounds underweight for her age, and had a fading bruise along her forearm that the EMT photographed without comment, her jaw tight the whole time. At the hospital, Dr. Alvarez pulled me into the hallway. Ms. Doyle, I have to ask, how long has she been like this? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. I handed him the tablet. There's a video. I haven't watched it. I couldn't. We watched it together in a small consultation room. The footage was dim, lit only by a nightlight, but the audio was clear enough to turn my stomach. Kayla's voice, flat and irritated, telling Mia to stop crying, that she was too much, that Mia's father, my brother, didn't want a difficult kid around, and neither did she. Then the sound of a door closing, a lock clicking into place, footsteps fading. The timestamp read 4 days earlier. Dr. Alvarez's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped low. We're obligated to report this immediately. When Kayla finally answered her phone, her tone was breezy, rehearsed. Oh good, you got my message about the mail. Mia's in the hospital. I found her locked in her room. The pause was too short to be shock. You went into her room. That's not your business, Rachel. Severely dehydrated. She could have died. She's dramatic. She does this for attention. Locks herself in, refuses to eat. It's a phase. Kayla's voice sharpened. "You had no right to call anyone." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. Detective Renfro from Child Protective Services arrived that evening, a calm, unhurried woman who'd clearly seen every version of this story before. She reviewed the video, the medical chart, the padlock, which I'd bagged as evidence without even thinking to ask if I should. "This isn't a first offense pattern," she said quietly. "This is someone who's done this before and gotten away with it." She was right. Over the next week, records surfaced. 2 prior anonymous tips to CPS in the past year, both closed after a single follow-up visit where Kayla presented Mia as shy and the house as clean and stable. A pediatrician's note flagging unexplained weight loss, dismissed after Kayla claimed Mia had a sensitive stomach. Each time the system had looked, seen a composed young mother, and moved on. When Kayla arrived at the hospital that night, she cried on cue in the hallway, telling nurses how terrified she'd been, how she'd only stepped out for groceries. It might have worked if Detective Renfro hadn't been standing 3 feet away holding a folder with a timestamp that put Kayla 2 states over at a resort the entire time. Kayla's face didn't crumble. It hardened. "This is a misunderstanding," she said. "Mia exaggerates. She always has." Behind the glass, Mia was awake now, watching her mother through the window with an expression I'll never forget. Not fear, exactly. Not yet relief. Just exhaustion. The particular exhaustion of a child who has learned that hoping gets you nothing. What none of us knew yet was that Kayla wasn't planning to fight this quietly. She had a story ready, a version of events built for Courtroom, and she was about to make my brother part of it. The preliminary hearing was set for the following Tuesday. In the meantime, Dan came to see me, the first time in months he hadn't sided with Kayla by default. "She told me Mia was staying with her mother," he said, sitting at my kitchen table looking 10 years older than he had a week earlier. "I didn't know, Rachel. I swear I didn't know." I believed him, mostly, but belief didn't undo the fact that he'd been too checked out to notice his daughter disappearing in his own house. I didn't say that. He was starting to see it himself. Kayla's lawyer, a sharp, unbothered man named Prescott, built her defense around a single narrative. Mia was a troubled, manipulative child prone to self-harm and exaggeration, and Kayla, exhausted, isolated, doing her best as a young mother, had made an error of judgment, nothing more. He requested the video be excluded, calling it a curated performance by a child known to seek attention. Judge Alvarez, no relation to the doctor, allowed it in over Prescott's objection. On the stand, Mia was so small in the witness chair that the bailiff brought a booster cushion. Her voice shook through every answer. When Prescott asked, gently but pointedly, whether she liked to make up stories to get people to feel sorry for her, I watched her flinch like she'd been struck. Then, Dr. Alvarez testified. He walked the court through the medical findings. Malnutrition consistent with weeks, not days, of restricted food. Bruising patterns inconsistent with Kayla's explanation of a fall. Documented visits where concerns had been raised and dismissed. This was not a single lapse. This was sustained deprivation. Prescott tried one last angle, suggesting Mia's symptoms could stem from an eating disorder, something self-inflicted, something that had nothing to do with Kayla. It was a reach, and I saw 2 jurors' faces tighten in disbelief. Then came the turn none of us saw coming. A woman named Priya, Kayla's former roommate before she and Dan married, contacted Detective Renfro after seeing a local news brief about the hearing. She'd kept text messages from 3 years earlier, before Mia was even born, where Kayla, anxious about an unplanned pregnancy, had written, "If this doesn't work out, I'm not doing the mom thing forever. Kids are a phase you can end." It wasn't proof of what happened to Mia directly, but paired with everything else, it painted a picture Prescott couldn't spin away. a woman who had never wanted the responsibility and had spent years quietly building an exit. Detective Renfro submitted the messages. Prescott requested a recess. Kayla, for the first time since the hearing began, looked less like a wronged mother and more like someone watching a carefully built story come apart in real time. The recess didn't save her. When court resumed, Judge Alvarez asked Kayla directly why Mia had been locked in her room for 4 days. Prescott tried to interject, but Kayla waved him off. Something in her had already decided the performance wasn't working anymore. "She wouldn't stop crying," Kayla said, her voice flat now, stripped of the tears from the hallway. "I needed a break. I needed 1 week where I wasn't responsible for something. Is that so hard to understand?" The courtroom went silent. Even Prescott stopped writing. "You left a 7-year-old alone for 4 days," Judge Alvarez said slowly, "with a padlock installed on her door." "I was going to come back. She could have died." Kayla's composure finally broke. Not into remorse, but anger. "Nobody died. Everyone's acting like I'm a monster. I've given up everything for that kid, and this is what I get?" It was the moment the room stopped seeing a grieving mother and started seeing exactly what Priya's messages had described. The judge terminated Kayla's parental rights that afternoon, pending a full custody review, and referred the case for criminal charges of child endangerment. Dan didn't fight for joint custody. He asked quietly if I'd help him learn how to actually be present, not just provide a house, but notice things. Detective Renfro connected him with a family counselor, and Mia moved in with him under supervised transition, with me 10 minutes away instead of 40. The first week, Mia asked if she needed permission to eat when she was hungry. Dan sat with her at the table every time and said, "Always, every time, no asking." Slowly, something in her started to unclench. She started drawing again. Mostly our old dog, mostly sprinkle cookies. Small, ordinary things a 7-year-old should be allowed to want without earning them. Kayla called me once, weeks later, from a number I didn't recognize, her voice thin with the particular self-pity of someone still convinced she'd been wronged. I let it ring out. I think about that padlock sometimes. How deliberate it was. How much thought went into keeping a child contained rather than cared for. And I think about what Mia said that very first day through a locked door. "You came back." She shouldn't have had to wonder if anyone would.